Hello and welcome to The Big Fight. And the big fight for the last couple of weeks has really been about trying to get as many medals as we possibly can at the Olympics. And for a long period of time, it was looking as if these could be really bad Olympics for us. There was at one point even a concern that maybe this will be the first Olympics since 1992 when India will come back without actually getting any medal at all. Now, fortunately, that's not happened. The girls in particular have done us really proud. PV Sindhu, obviously, Sakshi, Malik really done a fantastic performance out there and lifted the mood of the entire nation. And Yogeshwar, that of course is still to come, and there could be other surprises as well. But essentially, some of the questions that have been raised over the last week, 10 days, do deserve to be discussed. What is it that we as a nation can do to try and make sure that we aren't left scrambling for 3, 4, 5 medals? What is it that we can do to give our athletes the support that they really need? Because in many ways, it is shameful that our athletes are there in Rio competing. They don't necessarily have the best medical support. They train in not the best of conditions. We have seen pictures these weeks, and I'm going to play this for you right now while I'm speaking. Look at these pictures. These are people who might well be contenders for swimming competition in 2020, 2024. There's a perfectly good swimming pool somewhere which is lying defunct. But look at these people. They are actually swimming in a dam, in dirty water with lizards and snakes in a dam. Now that's shocking. Those images are shocking. But also our existing athletes who went to Rio, many of them had to, Deepa Kamarkar, for example, has come out and said that the equipment wasn't completely perfect. So she's training for the Olympics with months to go, and she doesn't have the best of equipment. So there are certain issues that we need to get around. And while we definitely should celebrate the achievements that our athletes have done, and they've done a great job considering everything that's happened, we need to also figure out how to fix this so that we are not having a similar debate when it comes to 2020. And joining us to take us through many of these issues, great to have with us Shekhar Gupta, senior journalist, who's actually been pointing to a very relevant, very strong silver lining in all this also, that it's great that India now has 20 to 30 athletes who, even in this Olympics, actually came into the top 10. And that's a big positive that we need to look at.
And more than 100 who now figure in the world in top 25.
And that's a big change, because that did not happen 10 years or 15 years ago, and a number of sports that India can compete in. That's a big positive that we will take forward with us. And one of those sports obviously being shooting, and Shiman Sharif is with us. Shooters represented India in the Shooting World Cup. May have been a bit of a disappointment, more than a little bit of a disappointment at Rio. But again, it could have been very different if Jeetu Rai, for example, had just not bungled those last 2-3 shots and got through. Abhinav missed a medal by literally a micromillimeter. So great to have you with us. Wrestling, of course, has been an absolutely fantastic story. Mahavir Prasad is with us. Dronacharya awardee, one of India's best known wrestlers earlier. Please do put your hands together for him as well. And for Shiman. Great to have you with us. Atul Vasan is here to talk about the sport that is actually a religion in India. And at least one Chinese publication has come out and said, well, the reason India doesn't win too many Olympic medals is because you spend all your time worrying about cricket. So is that really the case? And why don't we get cricket into the Olympics, by the way? You're going to talk about the first part. And Ratnakar Shetty is joining us, General Manager, Game Development at the BCCI, who's going to tell us actually why isn't it that we can get cricket into the Olympic Games, and why doesn't the BCCI, while we're about it, support cricket when it is there at the Asian Games and the Commonwealth Games? Something I've never understood. Maybe we'll try and get an answer to that. Sohail Seth, great to have you with us as well, Managing Partner of Consulage. We'll talk about some of the discussion which has been taking place around us. And finally, Shobha Day joining us, who's really been in the thick of the wars, Shobha, if I can say that, for the last 10-15 days. So this program is called The Big Fight, so maybe I should just start with you. It has been a big fight that you've been having with the entire Twitter community ever since a comment that you made about 10 days back about athletes essentially going there to take selfies. You haven't spoken much about it since then. I think this is one of the first times you're coming on TV. So let me put that question to you. Do you regret that tweet? Do you regret ever having got onto Twitter in the first place?
There was absolutely no malice intended. It was said out of a sense of panic. At that point, it really did look like we were going to come back khali haath. And it's only in the last 2 or 3 days that things have turned around. Having been an athlete myself, it was said out of a sense of deep frustration. I'm a sentimental person. When I tweet, I don't calculate. It's said straight from the heart. Sometimes I get it right, sometimes I don't. This time, obviously, it backfired. I've been punished for it, shamed for it, trolled for it. What more is required? Some sort of public penance? I mean, things have turned around, and I'm delighted that it has turned around. I'm delighted to be proved wrong, that at least, if nothing else, we are coming back with 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever the final tally may be. But on the other hand, I'm an ambitious Indian. I'm not happy with a tally of 2 or 3. I'm saying, this was a chance to prove ourselves. The athletes are doing their bit. Team India, when I talked about Team India, it also included the Babus, officialdom, the contingent, all of it. I mean, most of the time, one tries to say exactly and precisely what one would like to. Sometimes that doesn't happen. I just feel I've taken it all on the chin and moved on, and I wish everybody else would too. This was not aimed at any person. It was not aimed at an individual. And sometimes, I didn't break any law. It was an opinion. I didn't curse. I didn't abuse. But I was at the receiving end of a lot of that. But I'm not cribbing. I'm not complaining. That's the nature of the beast.
I mean, I want to get back to the Olympics.
Indian.
It's not about you and about a Twitter battle, but I'm just curious why you didn't just come out and saying, I'm sorry, I wasn't targeting the athletes, limitations of Twitter, blah and blah. You may have, saved yourself a lot of
But listen,
grief.
I don't like being pressured into doing something. To paraphrase Raghuram Rajan in a way, I am who I am. I tweet what I tweet. And, it was not meant to hurt any feelings. And,
but in retrospect, do you think you were...
First you tweet, then you delete your tweet, then you apologize. I find the whole exercise very tedious.
But in retrospect, do you think, Shobha, you were somewhat disrespectful?
This is who I am.
But Shobha, in retrospect, do you think you were somewhat disrespectful to the athletes who are out there striving? And they have they did give it their all for a considerable amount of time. It takes a lot to be able to go for the Olympics. So do you think, in retrospect, and I'm asking you because you're clarifying right now,
no
do you think you were disrespectful to the athletes out there?
Perspective.
And maybe you just need to say something.
Put it into great perspective. And it was not meant or designed to hurt the feelings of the athletes at all. Let me repeat that one more time. And I think Shekhar put it in perfect perspective. He's given really a whole new dimension to it when he talked about the number of athletes who have qualified this year. And that in itself is commendable. But this discussion is not just about a tweet which I have put behind me. Okay. And I think we should concentrate on Tokyo 2020. That's much more important, and have a more constructive dialogue looking ahead.
And I'll take it forward from this, that Indian elites are generally, strongly, viciously, viscerally, and fundamentally anti-sport. Indian elites, when I say Indian elites, middle class, upper middle class onwards.
Viscerally anti-sport.
I don't agree.
Isn't that a rather strong statement?
And how can you have 3 layers of the elite? I mean, you decide. Either the elite is the elite.
Your turn will come. Everybody knows what layer you are in, so I'm not questioning that.
No, of course. But what do you mean by elite?
No. So what happens is...
You're the elite?
Yes. I'm the elite, yes. And I didn't send my children to play to Gopinath, to Gopi Chand. So what happens is that we link everything to success in our careers. So we are driving all our children into coaching classes for IITs, IIMs, medical schools, to risk your life and career on a competitive Olympic sport where you will make money or you will make fame only when you compete with the rest of the world, right? And if we were not so anti-sport and if we were better informed, we would not make the kind of factual errors that, say, Shobha made. And I don't hold it against her, because to think that after the first week of the Olympics, when you haven't got anything, you may end medalless, as you also thought, is wrong. Because India,
I only said there's a risk we might be without a medal.
No, because
3 days ago.
I'm challenging that. There was no risk, because the areas of India's medal strength, contact sports, boxing, wrestling, even track and field. Wait now, track and field.
We had very little chance.
But it always happens second week onwards. It always happens second week. So nobody in this country realized that India's Olympics, even India's Asian Games, always begin in the second half.
Okay, but I'm going to come back to the actual performance. Because I think let me first look at your basic premise before we come to these Olympic Games and then look at 2020, going forward. Specifically, the fact that Indian elites are anti-sports. How many people are really going to push their children to saying, go and play sports and do it at a sustained level? Cricket, perhaps now with IPL and other things coming up, you can make a living.
The most obtuse and illogical argument is when you link performance to elitism or the absence of it. It's the most obtuse argument. And let me explain why.
You're making it obtuse. I'm not linking performance. I'm linking commitment.
Yeah, 1 minute. Let me explain. You've had your turn, so let me explain. The argument is facetious for the following reasons. Cricket draws many people who don't qualify for Shekhar Gupta's elite. They join sport. People, that is parents, will commit their children to sports where they see careers, but there are an equal number of people who are committing their children both from the defined elite, Abhinav Bindra being a case in point, and the non-elite to sport.
Yeah,
I think the fundamental issue that must be addressed is why do we perform poorly, and the blame must reside across the spectrum. It must reside across corporate India. It must reside across governments who don't support various sports as much as they should. Okay. I mean, who guarantees more TRPs? Not athletics, it's cricket.
Actually, there's a considerable amount of interest. I'm saying, look, let's also recognize one thing. I think this country is changing. Maybe the authorities are not changing fast enough. There is tremendous interest now in sports. Look at the viewership that you're getting. And by the way, talk to the people in the broadcasters, talk to Star, for example, and they'll tell you the sort of viewership you're getting for Kabaddi.
Yeah.
Look at Kabaddi, look at other sports. There is interest in sports. Now, we have to figure out how to harness it. I can tell you, trying to anchor the 9 o'clock news for the last 2-3 days has been impossible. I can't get anybody in NDTV to pay attention. I'm saying we're on air in 3 minutes. 1 minute, Sindhu ka nakla point aa raha hai.
No, I think someone made a point in one of the newspapers.
No,
1 minute. In the editorial today or yesterday, saying the one good thing that's happened is more and more people are watching sport other than cricket. Yes. That's the first step. And the second step is there are corporates, JSW, I think Sanjeev Goenka in Calcutta, who are now committing to setting up institutes of sport to match that in terms of the profile of Patiala.
I do want to come back to the good news and the bad news from Rio in just a couple of seconds. But before I finish that, just wanted to ask both of you, the number of people who are actually getting into sports. Do you agree with the basic first point that Shekhar made, that people don't get into it? And especially in shooting, it's not that easy to get in.
Vikram, I think in our country, in India, sports is considered secondary, as a second option. There's a lot of stress on studies, it's a very famous saying, complete your homework, then go out and play. And this shows the mindset of the Indians. If you compare this with the system in China, which
we've run a campaign saying there should be marks for sports. That's one of the ways to do it.
It's always been there. Marks have been there.
Padhoge, likhoge, banoge nawab, kheloge, kudoge, hoge kharab.
And even if you see, the
Bhavin ji, पर आजकल कुछ हद तक ये भी हो रहा है कि अगर आप कुछ परिवार को देखें, देखिए हरियाणा में क्या हो रहा है, किस तरह से लोगों ने अपनी पूरी जिंदगी बदल दी है, तकदीर बदल दी है. एक बार मेडल आ जाता है तो उन्हीं के लिए नहीं, उनके खानदान के लिए, उनके गांव के लिए, पूरे राज्य के लिए एक तरह से उल्लास होता है, गर्व होता है, उनकी जिंदगी भी बदल सकती है.
अब हरियाणा में या इंडिया में मैं ये कहूँगा, स्पोर्ट्स का पेरेंट्स भी कल्चर बनने लग रहा है, किंतु ये जो गवर्नमेंट का सिस्टम है अभी भी हमारे स्पोर्ट्स में ओलंपिक मेडल के काबिल नहीं है. हम इससे बहुत पीछे हैं. मैं रेसलिंग का पिछले 3 ओलंपिक से मेडल लेते आ रहे हैं. तो मैं ये कहता हूँ कि आज हमारे देश में रेसलिंग के कितने हॉल हैं. सबसे बड़ा पॉइंट है, हमारे देश में 8 महीने गर्मी रहती है. 8 महीने गर्मी, अगर इस एयर कंडीशन में रेसलर ट्रेनिंग करेगा तो 3 घंटे ट्रेनिंग कर सकता है. विदाउट एयर कंडीशन विद इन 30 मिनट ही स्पीक, सर प्लीज स्टॉप. सर मैं गारंटी लेता हूँ हमारी 10 कमी में से 5 कमियाँ दूर कीजिए कि रेसलिंग में हम टोटल 18 मेडल है, 18 में से हम 9 मेडल जीत सकते हैं.
सुपर्ब.
ये मैं गारंटी से कहता हूँ. हमारा आईजी स्टेडियम, इंदिरा गांधी स्टेडियम में एयर कंडीशन हॉल है. रेसलिंग का एक सबसे बड़ा एक कि वो आईजी स्टेडियम कैडी ज़्यादा हॉल है. वो केवल कंपटीशन एशियन चैम्पियनशिप होते हैं, कॉमनवेल्थ गेम्स हुए हैं, उसमें मेरी टीम ट्रेनिंग करती है. 40 रेसलर में आई है. वो एयर कंडीशन कभी नहीं चलाया जाता, बहुत परेशान रहते हैं. कोई फंक्शन होता है तो एयर कंडीशन चलता है, और कोई होता है तो एक 200 रेसलर, 200 रेसलर देयर ट्रेनिंग, और आई आल्सो देयर, बट एयर कंडीशन के लिए बार बार रिक्वेस्ट करते हैं, वो एसी नहीं चलता. सिर्फ नेशनल कैंप में अब प्रोवाइड किया गया एयर कंडीशन हॉल 2010 से. सिर्फ नेशनल कैंप में कितने बच्चे जाते हैं?
But if you see, if you check all the schools of Delhi. I don't think so. There'll be a wrestling facility in the schools of even in.
No one
in a
school
city.
have wrestling facility.
Or a shooting range. Or a shooting range.
But wrestling, but you know, Shekhar, there's a different shooting. You can still be understand. Okay, it's expensive.
You need
equipment
specialized
that's required.
equipment.
But wrestling is as Indian a sport. It's a sport where we've been winning medals from the very beginning, from Kedar Jadhav's time. How difficult can it be to provide basic facilities?
You know,
and it is an area where we could be.
just
if
be
we
the
were
horse.
You
winning
ask him,
sport,
you
we'd be
have
getting so many
Olympian
medals.
shooters, you ask him, the government didn't allow reasonable amounts of ammunition to come in. They charged import duty, am I right?
Absolutely.
And now it was reviewed. So if everything is a hindrance, how on earth do you expect our athletes to
But then they
perform?
still do it. So I'm just going to come back to celebrating what they were able to do. But Atul, cricket, it is different. And we have Mr. Shetty with us. I'm going to ask him. Cricket is slightly different. Cricket, in that way, as Shekhar wrote it a couple of days back, that cricket actually perhaps is run better than a lot of the other
It's a
sports.
very good model for the other sports.
Unfair to compare cricket. You know, let's look
There's a
around.
lot more
I'm
money in
sometimes
cricket.
surprised to see the over-the-top, celebrations when we win a few medals, and if we don't, you know, what do you expect? Look at your ecosystem. We are not built as a race to compete in any sport which has got paramount angle of power, strength, and fast twitch muscle. You know, why are we got so
By
much
race,
little.
you're saying genetically we're not
Yes,
suited.
because we've got so much little butter. You know, you're spreading it so thin, and the sports where we actually have a chance to win is deprived of. You know, we can only win where the hand-eye coordination is there. Hockey was played on grass, we used to win. AstroTurf, we got no chance. Boxing, wrestling, you are matched by weight. Archery, shooting, that's where Indians will win. Now, why are you wasting money in athletics and swimming? We're never going to win a medal in 100 years. You've got 28, 29 medals in 112 years. Right,
Nobody
then
would
what
have
do you
thought you
expect?
were going to get a medal in
differ, you know.
gymnastics.
No,
you all
because-
got.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you know, then you are
P.T.
depriving
Usha and Mikha
sports.
almost got medals in
See,
athletics.
don't be happy about these exceptions. You know,
No,
these
there was an
exceptions
athlete
will
in the
be there.
finals in Rio
Despite
this
our
time.
system.
Athletics is the mother
You know,
of all sports.
have you seen a
You
Jamaican
don't
swim?
don't have
Why don't Jamaica spend money on swimming?
So actually, wait.
You know,
it's
why
not entirely
Kenyans
a wrong
don't,
point. It's not
do
entirely a
shooting?
wrong point
Why do
that
they
are.
only run because they've got bigger lungs?
Yeah.
Why do we compete in sport where we've got no chance?